Hey kids, it's Jurassic James from Trusting Plains looking at Gastonia. Now when I hear that name, I think of this, there's a billionaire named Rihanna who sings a song called Disturbia. And Disturbia, it's like Disturbia, na 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 na, Disturbia, na na, bum bum, like that. So I always feel like Gastonia, na 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 na, Gastonia. I don't know, it sticks to my head that way. Anyway, the main thing to point out with this animal is that it is a nodosaur that was discovered, or actually described formally, in 1998 by James Kirkland. Now, James Kirkland, or Jim Kirkland, is the lead paleontologist for the state of Utah, which to me is like career goals. Like, he's the top paleontologist of the state. That's so awesome. Anyway, there's a show in the 1990s called Paleo World, and it was about these two teenagers. It was a fictional show, obviously, but these two teenagers were paleo, dinosaur nuts, and they would have paleontologists come on, and they talk to them, they would interview them, they had little clips of paleontologists explaining things. And I remember as a kid that when I looked at a dinosaur book and I saw, Dr. this, Dr. that in the back of it, it was interesting, but seeing them on TV describing their theories made it more personable, and I was like, this is really kind of cool, Anyway, so the point of that story was the introduction to Gastonia for me was not a paper or a book, it was that show actually, where Jim Kirkland himself was describing this animal. Now what's really cool about it is that these little spikes here are called osteoderms. Osteoderm means bones and skin. Osteo, bone, derm, skin. One word. Why is that important to you and I? Because to make it relatable to the youth, the kids out there. So when you kids are on Friday night or out hunting alligators, as you kids do, when you shoot an alligator and the bullet hits his back, it goes ding, or something to that effect. Supposedly, side note, if you want to kill an alligator, you shoot it right here behind the head. How do I know that? Because a guy came to the museum and told me that, who had actually done it. He had shot an animal, and he told me how he did it. Anyway, the point is, the ding part is it hitting the osteoderm. So there's actually bones in the skin. Now, do you know when you see the skeleton in the museum, there's like spikes and everything? What you're seeing there is the bony part that got preserved by minerals. There would have been a sheath or covering making it sharper and longer. So imagine this material like your fingernails or hair is a keratin-like material growing over that. So again, what you're seeing in these huge spikes here will be smaller in the skeleton form. Why is that important? Because this animal is found with Utahraptor, the largest of the dromaeosaurs. And what's cool about that is not the scale, but what's cool about that is he was describing how they would probably interact, because you kids don't get it, but back in the early 90s, raptors weren't a big deal. I mean, they were important because they are bird relatives or bird-like features in dinosaurs, and people were like, before the 90s, were like, dinosaurs are cold-blooded and boring, and they're like, no, maybe they have, they're exciting. And so raptors kind of changed their mind there, but as far as the cultural takeover that we see today, they just didn't have it, Raptors, I would imagine, are as equally or close to T-Rex in popularity as a group, right, today. So back then, they discovered Utahraptor, this 20-foot long raptor, and he's essentially tying these two together, just like Dr. Bacher found Stegosaurus and Allosaurus, they had this kind of fighting situation going on, these two. And he pointed out that the armor on this Collect A, and I love Collect A, it's a toy make company, because I'm not sponsored by them, I'm just telling you, because other companies make Stegosaurus, Allosaurus, Velociraptor, T-Rex. Collect A makes unusual speed. This is my only one until recently, right? Anyway, so you see how the armor is kind of like going back. So it's kind of curved, and the one behind it is curved. And so the idea, he was suggesting that if these animals are moving around, they're turning and twisting, that can like kind of make a shearing process, kind of like scissors, right? So imagine your raptor here getting too close, the animal turns, and that shearing could cut something, right? And I remember when James Kirkland pointed that out, I was like, that is so cool. Unfortunately, there wouldn't be a toy of one for another 16 years. The point is, I should have prepared that, huh? The point is, that was an interesting view of the animal. Now, one thing to point out too with this guy is where it fits in the family tree of life. So in dinosaurs, one of the bigger groups is called Thyreophora, the shield bearers, Stegosaurus, and Ankylosaurs, the Ankylosauria. Within Ankylosauria, there's two main groups. Now, when you think of Ankylosaur, you think about, quite frankly, Ankylosaurus, Jurassic Park, and 2018 Safari. So these guys here, big club tails, flatter armor on the top, spikes on the side, right? That's what people often think about, even though they didn't really have quite spikes like that. Another relative of them is called Euplocephalus, which means well-armored head. So when you think of ankylosaurs, you're actually thinking of this animal because most people, most toy companies will put this animal with the two spikes here and the two on the tail and third on the ankylosaurs. Ankylosaurs, for the most part, have like flatter plates like this. These guys all have clubs. They have wider mouths, right? And so my analogy to them is, and this as far as feeding goes, is kind of like the wildebeest, big wide mouth. The nodosaur, so there's Thyreophora, stegosaurs, and ankylosaurs. Within ankylosaurs, there's ankylosaurids and nodosaurids. More on that later. So Gastonia falls in that kind of grouping. A very famous example of this is Sauropelta. So here is a PNSO figure. Here is a 2013 Safari. So you're seeing overall that they're very similar. You're seeing the two spikes here, two spikes there, the three on each side, on this here, on the neck. So you're seeing overall the same parts of these two animals. And so comparing these two to the Jurassic Park example, you see how they're more cartoony, more, less detailed in a situation. These are all the same species of thing, right? But they're nodosaurs because there's no club, and then their mouths are very narrow. So my analogy for these guys is like the gazelle or an impala, those kind of, smaller mouth for nipping food. Another example that's really popular is the Boreal pelta. I did a video on this before. This is the one they found in Canada that was like a mummy, basically. Here is the Jurassic World version, and here is the Collect A. There it is again, 2018 version. Another example of this is Edmontonia, who is a well-known dinosaur to paleontologists, but not to the public. So appreciate it. Again, this is probably a Collect A. Yep, Collect A 2010, Edmontonia. And that kind of shows you that there's no club, they have more narrow snouts, and they have more armor facing forward. Where the ankylosaurs kind of have like a general, just kind of a armor all over this area. Here, there's still armor here, but it's more jutting out towards the front. That's what we see, or at least in many nodosaurs. Now, speaking of nodosaurid, that term is being questioned repeatedly because within Nodosauria, yes, they have no clubs, yes, they have narrow snouts, but within their grouping, there could be subgroups within subgroups, because of course they can. And so the idea here is the closest relative we believe of Gastonia is actually Polacanthus, these guys here. Now, Walking with Dinosaurs made Polacanthus famous. Here's the toy I bought in 2001. There's no company name on it that I'm aware of. I don't see one. Is that it? No, that's his skin folds. So this is the one I've seen Walking with Dinosaurs. Here is I believe this is Papo, not Papo, and Collect A, once again, 2008. And so you're seeing these two, how they're much different in overall design than like these two, right? So Polacanthus is thought to be the closest relative to Gastonia in this situation. So within Nodosauria, there's subgroups beyond that. Moving forward, let's move these guys, get those mammals out of here. Let's see. So with the Jurassic World figure, again, it's a perfect example of what I call the Jurassic Parkification of these toys. That you see this one is based, scientific, some kind of, I imagine some expert had an idea, or at least a good picture of a skeleton. And this one is like, let's take that and, make it look cool. Which to me, it already looks cool. But giving it like unusual spike patterns here, that's what they're doing. The spikes are a little bit bigger, they're a little bit out of order, they're bigger, just more, Anyway, so where is our DNA code? So for the kids who don't believe in playing with physical toys, here's the DNA code. You can look at that. Ha, ooh, ha. But more importantly, if you take these two spikes, they move like that. Now, this is really cool because we do see more muscle attachments on the sides here. So the ankylosaurs did with their tails more side to side. So that's really, really great. But the toy is showing that. Finally, I want to point out this guy's neck is way too short. This one's, you can see the neck's kind of long, but it's kind of turning because it's like a mid-action pose. This guy, I guess he's just like looking at his predator, and so Utahraptor head on. In the environment, there were other predators than Utahraptor, but as far as toys go, I only have these guys. Now, the first three are representatives. Well, actually, no, they've found Tenontosaurus-like animals. This is a Collect A. This is not on purpose. I'm not trying to promote Collect A. I mean, they're a great company. I like them. They're not sponsors, but you see what I'm talking about, right? So the idea of Collect A has a 2009 Tenontosaurus, not to scale. Here is a Iguanodon from Blue Safari, 2015. So these are animals, you'd find these in early Cretaceous North America. Now this is a Brachiosaurus from safari. The year is hard to tell, but it represents a Cedarsaurus. Now, Cedarsaurus is essentially a relative of Brachiosaurus that's really famous from this site and this time. So again, this is a Brachiosaurus. They were extinct by the end of Jurassic. This is representing a Cedarsaurus. Of course, there's Utahraptor, who this I think is a Poplo, right? Nope, it's a Schlie. And finally, we have Falcarius. Now, Falcarius is cool because this is an early member of the Therizinosaurus grouping. These got the long claws that I talk about all the time. So Falcarius, I remember he's another dinosaur. It's another dinosaur that Jim Kirkland was like on TV about, like, look at this thing, it's really cool. You know, these guys, they would kind of frame them as like raptors that went vegan or vegetarian kind of thing. I call them Cretaceous pandas. The point is, these guys here are their environment in the Cedar Formation. So that's Gastonia in a nutshell. It's a really cool dinosaur. Oh, last thing to point out, they found, all the ankylosaurs found in this formation, Gastonia is the only one they find together. And they found like an adult with a bunch of subadults. And we don't know what that means because sometimes looking at, well, if they're together, did they die and get washed somewhere? Or do they live together? We don't know that part, but it seems the way they're preserved, it indicates they were probably living together, or at least together in the moment. I can only imagine like it's like a classroom with the adult and subadults, like he's teaching them and everything, and then something covers them all up in mud. I don't know. But that's Gastonia in a nutshell. Really cool animal in its own right. And again, raptors were a big deal, and then Utahraptor was the biggest raptor, dromaeosaur basically. And so Gastonia was kind of framed as this contender, the Triceratops to its T-Rex, the Stegosaurus to its Allosaurus. So that's why it's such a big deal to me personally. And so impactful on my childhood. With that being said, I think that's all for today. If you want to know more about dinosaurs, I'll get another one and explain it in more detail, but they're debating it right now, so it's a lot of back and forth, so I'm not going to go into detail here today. But that's Gastonia. Thank you very much.